My second apology is that I'm not Daniel Tenoro, who was the speaker originally advertised for this slot. Danielle is the author of Green Capitalism, Why It Doesn't Work, which you'll see on bookstands and so on. I can't give the contribution he would give. I don't have his scientific background, and I don't speak English as well as he does either. So I'll very much make my own contribution. But he had to pull out at the last minute, which was a problem. It's absolutely brilliant that we've got together at RS21 and we're having this discussion on ecology and the ecological crisis. There's been a lot of discussions going on amongst the far left for the last 6 months or a year, and we've discussed many things. We've discussed feminism, we've discussed the unions, we've discussed campaigning, but this is the first time we've got round to discussing the environment. And this is important because, in my view, the environmental crisis is the biggest crisis facing humanity by far. It's bigger than the economic crisis, although of course it intersects at all kinds of levels with the economic crisis. So it's brilliant that we're having this discussion today. When I looked at the title of this event, Ecosocialism, Fracking, Climate and Revolution, I was sort of even more pleased because that is an incredibly ambitious title. You know, to set out to really address that title is a really ambitious thing to do. It involves things that stretch from all the necessary campaigning that we need today, through to what kind of alternative society we want to create, kind of thing that Natalie has been talking about in her contribution, to the issues of where does ecology stand? Such things as where does ecology stand in the programme for Socialist Revolution? And what role does ecology and the ecological crisis play in the struggle for socialism and the overthrow of capitalism? It encompasses all that, so it's an incredibly ambitious title. I think the first thing to say is that the ecological crisis itself, the scale of some of the things that Natalie has started to point out, the scale is enormous and the science is conclusive. I mean, we have to defend the science, but you know, we don't rely on the science is conclusive for us. It is happening and it's getting worse. The last decade was the warmest ever, and the last year was the warmest ever, and we're now only a few decades from a rise in the average global temperature over pre-industrial levels, which will lead to a feedback process in which the whole process can spin and is likely to spin out of control. This is why I say, you know, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. The global temperature is rising, the ice caps are melting, the sea level is rising, the deserts are expanding, water is becoming more scarce, agriculture is under threat, extreme weather events are becoming more extreme and more frequent. Last year we saw Super Typhoon Haiyan that devastated the Philippines. We saw the hurricanes that devastated New Orleans and New York in the years earlier. And that's the shape of things to come. And there are even more scary things around as well, and one of which Natalie has mentioned. The crisis of biodiversity. We're now facing the biggest crisis of the extinction of species since the demise of the dinosaurs. And this is it. The biggest extinction since the demise of the dinosaurs, where half of the current species are currently at threat, the way that things are going. We now know that, for example, that the West Antarctic ice sheet is destabilising, is likely to continue to destabilise. Nobody knows exactly when it will complete its process, but when its process is completed, that event alone will rise sea levels by 3.3 metres. 3.3 metres from that factor alone. So it is a huge issue that we're dealing with. Now, I think we need to look a bit here about where this leaves us as Marxists and where it leaves the Marxist tradition. I say this from the point of view that I think the majority of us here regard ourselves as part of the Marxist tradition, and we need to look at it from that point of view. And the fact is that traditional Marxism or traditional socialism, in terms of the ecology, didn't have a good 20th century. And I think that we have a very big responsibility to make sure that it has a better 21st century. Otherwise, it will become irrelevant. If it doesn't, it will become irrelevant. And the fact is that despite the remarkable contributions and insights of Marx and Engels and the contributions made by William Morris, the fact is that much of the left, including the Marxist left, not only failed to recognise the profound nature of the ecological crisis and of climate change, even towards the end of the 20th century when that was becoming more evident, but actually adapted to its productivist language for most of the time. No, not everybody, obviously, but a lot did. I worked for many years in a factory producing motor cars, and I regarded myself as a Marxist. We had very strong trade unions, even elements of workers' control, but we never ever questioned the product that was being produced, that I would now regard as weapons of mass pollution. We never questioned that ever. And we were in a position to, we could have done. We could make all kinds of campaigns and proposals in terms, but we never ever did it. As far as we were concerned, if the working conditions were second to none and the wages were second to none, we were happy with that. And this was a very big mistake. It was a very big mistake of Marxists in the 20th century. So there is a very big job to be done within the Marxist tradition to win a real appreciation of the nature of this issue and to win the Marxist code as a whole to this. And for me, the key is the concept of ecosocialism, which is why I was so pleased to see that the first word of this title was ecosocialism. Socialist Resistance bit the bullet on this, not soon enough, but some years ago, and declared itself eco-socialist, and they regard this as a fundamental part of our political identity. And I don't know if there's a common view, of what is meant by eco-socialism, what it is, and why it's so important. People say, well, it's enough to say socialist. Well, is it enough to say socialist? At one level, you can say, well, it means you have to be read to be green and you have to be green to be read. Well, okay. And you can say that it's a declaration that the ecological issues are not an add-on, but you have to make it fundamental to your work. Well, that's true as well. And you can say it's a signal that you reject the capitalist logic of insatiable growth and the drive for profit. And that will be true as well. But actually, actually, I think the term ecosocialism means quite a bit more than that. I think it affects the socialist project itself, and I think it affects the kind of society that we want to build when we're able to build a socialist society. And I think it's a declaration that we intend to build a new society based on ecological sustainability and social equality and the predominance of use values over exchange values. I think it's that. More fundamentally, it's that. It's also a vision of a society that is built on the idea of working in harmony with nature, of being a part of nature, and not being in conflict with nature, and not existing at the expense of nature. This is all, I think, is a very, very fundamental thing. It's also a signal that we don't want to see a socialist revolution take place when there's nothing left, and we inherit a desert, where most of the species are gone, and where we're struggling to even produce food because of the basic biodiversity, produce food and all that kind of. It's a declaration of that. But it's also actually even more fundamental, because I think it's a declaration that we will have to continue the struggle to defend the planet ecologically, even after the socialist revolution. The idea that the socialist revolution will automatically resolve the ecological crisis does not make sense. It's true, of course, that it will make a huge difference. It will open new doors. It will mean we have a more rational society and everything else. But it will still be difficult to defend the planet even then. So we can't just wait for socialism. We have to, and this is where I would strongly endorse the things that Natalie said before. We have an absolutely huge problem. The fact is that we've got to change society and everything else. But the fact is also, people cannot carry on living as they are. That is a fact. We cannot produce and use the cars as they are, the aeroplanes as they are, the oceans. It just cannot go on. Things are going to have to change. And it's absolutely right. And it can be, we have to produce a positive case for change. A different kind of society, which is not worse, is not more frugal, but it's different. But it's a very, very big job that we've got. Because at the moment, in my opinion, we don't really even have an effective exit strategy from global warming in a timescale that will protect the planet. We don't even have that at the moment. So we need that, and we also need an approach which can win mass support, because it isn't any point in having, we can spell out the exact solutions, that's fine. We've got to reduce carbon emissions by 90% by 2050, that's fine. But how do you get there, and how do you win the popular support for the measures needed to get there? This is the question that has to be asked, and these are very big questions. And I think that if we can start to discuss some of these things today, it would be a day very well spent.
I'm down today from Oxford. I was asked to speak, and I'm very, very grateful for the chance to speak because of the fossil fuel divestment campaign that a group of students in Oxford is currently trying to kind of champion. We have had some recent success. The university has